All right, so we are on Tzadi Ches Amud Beis, all the way at the top, Tana Rabbanan. We're going to talk about the Mishkan. The Mishkan, some very beautiful, some just simply understanding how the Mishkan looked, what the structure was, and then I think some important ideas as well that come out of it. Okay, so let's just jump in, and then we'll discuss and analyze. Okay, so we're learning this Leitlan Nishmas Mindel Mariam Bas Kalman Ruvain her Neshama Shavan Aliyah. So Tana Rabbanan. So we learned in a brayso Krushim, the boards of the Mishkan. Okay, so the Mishkan was made up of boards, right? So there are three primary walls. The eastern wall is not going to be covered with the eastern wall is the opening, but then there's three walls. There's two walls on the side, and then there's the western wall, and so the boards that make up those walls, milmatan ovyan ama, everyone agrees that the bottom of those walls were an amma thick, umilmalan kalam v'holchan ad ke'etzba. But at the top, it tapers until it reaches the size of a finger. Okay, so this we'll see. There's a machlokes, but according to the first opinion, the boards that make up the Mishkan, the boards that make up the walls of the Mishkan, it starts like an amma, and then it just gradually gets thin until it basically reaches just the thickness of a finger. So it goes, like this. Okay, shenemar yutamim al rosho. The pasuk says it should be tam at its top. So what does the word tam mean? Ulahalanu and word tamu nichrasu. In Yoshua, it talks about the fact that the waters came to an end. They were cut off. So the term tam, according to Rav Yehuda, the word tam means they completed, they finished. They basically came to an end. So basically, again, the beams start off as an amma, and then it tapers to the top, and it comes to an end, basically comes to a point. Okay, Rabbi Nechemya says, Kashem shemal matan ovyan amma, just like on the bottom, it is the thickness of an amma, kach mil malyan ovan amma, so too at the top, it is the thickness of an amma, shnemar yachtav, as it states in the pasuk, together. Together, he understands, means that there is consistency throughout, that it starts in amma and it ends in amma. Okay, we're going to analyze each of these opinions, Rav Yehuda and Rav Nechemya, if you want to remember which one is which. My trick is Rav Yehuda, the little yud implies that it kind of comes to a tiny little top at the top, right? And basically it gets thin at the top, whereas Rav Nechemya is the one who says it's amma all the way through. Okay, so the Gemara is going to ask now about to each one. Vaksiv tamim. According to how does Rav Nechemya, who understands that it's amma across from top to bottom, what does he do with the words tamim, which we just interpreted to mean that it comes to an end? Sahu delesu shleiman velo lesu denisra. He understood the word tam probably in the term the explanation that we're more accustomed to in the word tam. Tam means like complete or perfect, and the idea is that there's two ways to make boards. You can make boards that are simply straight board, like you cut the boards from the trees, or you can make composite wood, right? You can have composite wood where it's just a bunch of pieces of wood pushed together, and tam, according to him, means it has to be pure. It has to be just actual pieces of wood and not a bunch of pieces of wood mushed together. Okay, that's the word tam means according to Rab Nechemya. Ve'idach nam yaksiv yachtav. And now we ask, according to Rav Yehuda, what does he do with the words that it says together, which according to Rav Nechemya implied that there is a consistency from the top to the bottom, that there's an amma from the top, from the bottom all the way to the top. Hahu delo lishlach lufinhu me'adadi. That they have to be flush. The word yachtav, again, also in a much more literal sense, in the sense that it's yachad is together, and the boards have to be flush, there can't be any gaps. That's the meaning of yachad. Okay, so now the Gemara goes a little further in terms of its challenge. Bishlam lamad, or an analysis of each of these views. Bishlam lamad amar kshem shalmatan avyon amma, kach milamalan avyon amma. So we understand, according to Rav Nechemya, who says there's an amma at the bottom, amma at the top, hanu dechsiv, uliyarkse hamishkan yama, tasa shisha karashim. That's why it says at the western end, you have 6 boards, ushnei krashim tasel kutzos, and there are 2 boards that are made for the corners. Da'asi pusya dahani, milmale lo l'sumcha dahani, because the width of the 2 corner boards comes to fill the thickness of the end boards. Right? In other words, according to Rav Nechemya, who says it's an amma across. So there are 2 corner boards. And the purpose of the corner boards are what? To make it flush, right? In other words, you have the 6 boards of the western side, you have the boards all the way on the north and south, and then the Torah says there are 2 boards in the corners. What's the function of the boards in the corners? To make it all flush, that there's no gaps, and therefore now it's a perfect rectangle, right? But according to Rav Yehuda, who says that they taper off at the top, this board would go in, this board would go out. So if you want to get a sense of what that means, look at by footnote 9, and you'll see, according to Rav Yehuda, the corner is going to look kind of funky, right? Because basically what happens is if you have the tapered boards on the western side, and then you have tapered boards on the north and south, and then you put 2 boards on each side. So it ends up like the corners look really bad. They look really strange because they're not really filling up it. They're filling up a gap, but they're also kind of making it incongruent. They're making things jutting out on each side. Do you see that on footnote 9? right? So it's not going to fit nicely. And she's like, Gemara, no problem. Those corner ones were going to be tapered. And look at footnote 10. And you see, basically, it's true. The regular boards are... just an amma, then they go and they taper off to being like just a finger's thickness. But the corner ones were going to be you take off a little bit of the piece to make it kind of rounded, sort of. So kind of like a mountain where it's all going to be like jutting inwards, and that's what you do to the corner ones, and therefore everything ends up being flush as well. Okay, so there's no real kasha. It's true the corner ones are going to be a little bit different than the rest of them in order to make everything flush together. Yeah, you see the pictures? It kind of makes sense? Okay, fine. Says the...
Do we really... I've never seen a picture that shows this tapered board.
Yeah. Why do they all go with the opinion of Nehemiah? I'm not sure. It could be just simpler. I'm not sure. Yeah, fair. I'm not sure if we're going to bring a proof from the pictures in the back of like the Chumashim or we drew as kids, but it's a fair point that if for whatever reason this tapered view is not one that's typically stated and discussed. Okay, another thing that that we just mentioned, one other detail of the Mishkan, Vabriach Hatichon V'socha Krashim, and there is a middle bar inside the boards going from end to end. Okay, so what does that mean? What that means, there are three boards in the middle of that held the board. So there are three poles. You have the boards, board, and then you have poles holding those boards together, right? What ensures that the boards don't fall over? So they have pegs on the bottom, which we'll get to soon, but there are going to be poles that go through the boards to hold the boards together so they don't fall one from the other. But there's the Briach Hatichon, the middle board, which goes in on one side, and then it says it goes all the way from end to end. What does it mean from end to end? Tana, the Brisa says, B'neisei Omei, the middle bar was positioned miraculously. What that means is it started here, and then it went all the way around. Somehow this bar, this metal bar, went all the way around and basically turned and made a U, right? Which is not the normal thing for a bar to do. It's a piece of metal. Somehow it miraculously goes through. The Mefarshim explained that the different bars represent the Avos, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, which hold the walls of the Mishkan together. The middle one represents Yaakov, that somehow miraculously is able to hold things together. I would venture to say that part of the miracle over here is that, what's happening is these boards are holding these boards together is a representation of the Jewish people being held together, and for the Jewish people being held together, B'neis Hayomdin, that the only way the Jewish people are able to be held together is somewhat miraculous, right? In other words, we are very different. We are very distinct. We have different tribes. We have different hashkafos. We have different things. The only way that the Mishkan representing the Jewish people's unity has to say the only way it's able to be held together is not normal. Yeah, it's abnormal. It doesn't make sense. You have this and that, and somehow you're able to come together in one shul or whatever, one place. There has to be some form of a miracle that really holds the Jewish people together, and that represents a lesson for all of time to recognize that sometimes it defies logic, but somehow we have to defy logic in order to hold ourselves together. Okay, now the Gemara continues with its tangent that we've been discussing the different. We're discussing now the different curtains of the Mishkan. So there are three curtains of the Mishkan, and it's going to come back to the discussion of Rav Nechemia and Rav Yehuda about the boards. Eventually, we're going to get back to our discussion in Masechah, the discussion of the laws of Shabbos. But the Mishkan, of course, is the source, is the paradigm from which we learn all the laws of the Torah of Shabbos, and therefore, this is an appropriate tangent. But again, we have Rav Nechemia who says that I'm on the bottom, I'm on the top. Rav Yehuda says I'm on the bottom, taper at the top. And now we're going to discuss there are three different coverings. We're only going to discuss two of them, but basically there is a rather ornate cover of the Mishkan, which is made up of all the different colors, the blue and the purple and all the different colors together. That's the first cover of the Mishkan, and then there's another cover on top of it, which is made of goat skin, which is on top of that, and then there is this one layer which doesn't cover the walls, it just goes to the top, which almost seems like a rain cover, which is covering. It's almost like a hood, but it's not really seen as significant as the two bottom covers. We're going to discuss both those covers and the measurements. We're going to get a little bit of math. And see how it matches up with the different views of Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Nechemia. Okay, so let's see. So, Vesa Mishkan Tasa Esirios, and the Mishkan, which is the more beautiful, more ornate covering, should be made of 10 panels. Orech Hayiriya Ha'acha Shmona Ve'esrim Ba'ama. Okay, the length of one panel is 28 amos. Okay, so it's 28 amos of this covering called Mishkan. Shtei Orkai Lefusi in the Mishkan. Place the length of the panels across the width of the tabernacle of the Mishkan. Kama havya, how much was the spread of each panel? Esrin usmani. Okay, again, so the Mishkan is 28 amos across. Dal asar leigra. So if you have 28, so we know there are 10 amos that are the 10 amos of the Mishkan of the interior of the Mishkan is 10 amos. Okay, so follow with me. They're 28. The Mishkan covering is 28 amos. Okay, if you cover it over the Mishkan itself is 10 amos. The interior of the Mishkan is 10 amos. So 28 minus 10. 18, okay. Right? Pashlu Teshla Hagisa, the Teshla Hagisa. So there's 9 on each side. Okay. So Rabbi Yehuda, according to Rabbi Yehuda, Migalia Amada Danim. Okay, so that means that the Amma of the sockets is going to be exposed. Okay, so let me talk about the sockets now. That means that there are on each side of the Mishkan, there's the boards are 9, and then there's a socket of 1 amma on the bottom. Okay, so basically, if there's 9 amos of curtain that hang over, then the sockets are uncovered, right? Because the sockets uncover. But that's according to Rabbi Yehuda, who basically, again, you're going to have 10 amos of the wall. Of the interior, and then the rest of it just immediately drapes over because it's just the size of a finger. So it just immediately drapes over, right? And then you have 1 amma revealed, which is the amma of the sockets. Okay, L'Rab Nechemia, but according to Rab Nechemia, there's going to be less. Why? Because according to Rab Nechemia, the top, granted, the interior is 10, but then you have the top, you have an amma on each side. Right? So you're not going to have 9 hanging over, you're going to have 8 hanging over because before it drops over, it extends an amma further over each side, right? So Nechemia, Megalia amma dekrashim. According to him, an amma of the board is also left exposed. Right? So far so good? Yeah?
On the bottom, you're saying.
On the bottom, right? In other words, this is my I need stuff. Okay, I need to bring stuff.
There's a picture.
There's a picture. Fantastic. Yes, there's a picture, right? So you see that? So according to good. So picture on footnote 13. This is according to Rabbi Yehuda, right? So there's 9 left over because it immediately goes over. Now the truth is it's a little bit less than 9 because we do the angle, you're gonna have to subtract, I don't know what the math is, but it's gonna actually be a little bit less than 9 full. It's going to have a little bit more that's revealed because it's not 9 straight because it actually goes out at a bit of an incline, right? But the point is it's around 9, okay? And therefore what's going to be revealed is just the sockets at the bottom, whereas according to Rav Nechemia, if you look at the picture by 15, it's going to 8's going to be hanging over, and therefore you're going to have the sockets as well as a little bit of the boards, which are also going to be revealed. Okay, so far so good. Okay. Now, let's go further. Shtei pusai l'orka the Mishkan, okay? Kama havyan arben. Now we're going to go in the opposite direction, the width, okay? No longer the back wall, okay? So there are 40 amos of curtains, okay? 40 amos of curtains across. In other words, so far we've been focusing on the Mishkan this way, now let's focus on the Mishkan this way, okay? There are 40 amos of curtains going this way, okay? So, pashlu dal tlasan le'igra. There are 30 amos for the roof. The interior is 30 amos. The Mishkan itself is 30 amos. Pashlu asar. So that means there are 10 amos which are draped over the western wall. Rabbi Yehuda, Mekasya amada danim. Okay, so according to Rabbi Yehuda, who holds that they're tapered at the top, there are 10 over, and that means the sockets in the back are covered. Rabbi Nechemia, Migalia amada danim. According to Rabbi Nechemia, who holds that the extra amma is going to be at the top, and therefore 1 amma is less, right? According to him, the sockets are going to be exposed in the back. Yeah? Makes sense because only 9 are going to be hanging over and not 10 because according to him, there's an amma taken at the top because there's an amma thickness at the top, at the width of the board.
I'm just curious, why are there 2? It's 2 separate structures is what we're describing right now?
No, now we're focusing on the back wall. In other words, until now we were focusing on the side walls, and now we're focusing on the western wall where it hangs over. Look at those pictures, the last 2 pictures.
So we're talking these are the exterior walls.
Exterior walls.
Not the main.
No, there's the main. There's the Mishkan. The Mishkan is 30 by 10.
Okay,
so far we've been the first thing we were focusing on was the sides of the Mishkan, the north and south side, and now we're focusing on the western wall where the curtain hangs now on the back. Right? Okay. Each of these, the measurements are going to be affected by Rabbi Yehuda and Nechemia's opinion is going to affect things on all 3 sides because whether there's an amma or no amma at the top is going to affect how much is hanging on each side, right? So now we're focusing on the western wall. According to Rabbi Yehuda, you're going to have 10 amos hanging over and therefore the entire back wall is going to be covered. According to Rabbi Nechemia, who holds there's an extra amma at the top because of the wall at the top, only 9 amos are going to be hanging over. Okay, fine. Now we're going to focus on the next covering, the covering on top of this. So again, this bottom covering is a beautiful covering. It's ornate, etc. It has all the different colors, the tcheles and the argaman, telashani, the red, blue, green. It has this beautiful, beautiful thing. This cover is made of goat hair. Ve'asisa yiras izim la'ohel. Okay, orech hayiria achash shloshim amma. The length of one panel over here is 30 amos. Okay, so now we're gonna let's analyze. So the length over here is 30 amos. Let's turn the page. Shtei or kaya lupusia to Mishkan. Place the length of the panels across the width of the Mishkan. Mishkan, Kamehavia Tlasin. Okay, Dal Asr Le'igra. Okay, so 10 amos for the roof, the inner width of the Mishkan. Okay, so Pashlu Asr Lahagisa, Asr Lahagisa. So now you have 10 left over on each side. In other words, if it's 30 amos across, then what happens is you have 10 amos for the interior and then 10 amos for the walls. Okay, so the Rabbi Yehuda, Mikasya Amada Danim. Okay, so Rabbi Yehuda holds that it gets tapered off at the top. That means 10 amos entirely covers. So that means that the sockets, which were until now uncovered, are now going to be covered. According to Nechemia, holds that there's an extra amma at the top. Megalia amma dadanim. The amma of the sockets were left exposed. Okay, right? I mean, that makes sense, right? Because according the Yerios Izim are going to be covering the Mishkan, and it's going to be 10 amos across, right? Remember, according the first curtain had 9 extra on each side, and according to Rav Yehuda, that means that the sockets were going to be uncovered. According to Nechemia, the sockets and the walls are going to be uncovered. This wall has 10 amos on each side. That means that according to Rav Yehuda, 10 amos are hanging. That means it's going all the way down to the floor, covering the sockets. Whereas according to Rav Nechemia, it's going to now still have the sockets uncovered. Okay. Tan Namihachi. We have a brisa which it's consistent with this. The amma mizeh odef, and there's an amma on this side in excess. Okay. Lechasos amma shel adanim. This cover, meaning the amma of the goat hair of the next cover, is 1 amma more than the cover under that. Okay, lechasus amma shel adanim to Rabbi Yehuda. According to Rabbi Yehuda, this covers the amma of the sockets. From Nechemia, lechasus amma shel krashim. This covers the amma of the boards, which was left uncovered by the covering on top. Okay, so just so you have a vision of this, the Mishkan covering is a little bit shorter than the which called the Mishkan covering, which is the ornate and very multicolored one, is a little bit shorter than the Izim covering, the goat hair covering, which covers all that, and according to Rabbi Yehuda, covers all the way to the floor. According to Nechemia, covers all the way to the top of the sockets. Okay, fine. Let's go a little further. Shtei psusai la'arka the Mishkan. Now we're going to focus on the western wall again. Kama havia. How much is there? Okay, arba and va'arba. 44 amos. So this second covering is 44 amos long. Dal tlasan le'igra. 30 amos for the roof, okay? Pashlu arba srei. Right now we're focusing going east to west, right? So 30 cover the interior of the Mishkan. Pashlu arba srei. There's 14 amos left. If it's 44 minus 30, there's 14 left. Dal tarti lechafla. There are 2 amos that fold over the eastern front of the Mishkan. So interestingly, the Torah tells us that in the front of the Mishkan, there are 2 amos of curtain hanging over. Kind of like a little bit of like a baseball, like a little hat, okay? At the front, there's just like a little bit hanging over. Okay? Pashlu tartes, right? There are 12 amos now for the back. Bishlam Rabbi Yehuda. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, who says that all 12 are going to be hanging over because it's tapered, that half the extra panel, each panel is 4 amos wide, and half the extra panel is draped over the back. Right, so this makes sense because we're saying that there is the Torah says that there is that the Torah says that half the extra panel will be draped over the back of the Mishkan. Okay, so you know that the back of the Mishkan actually had some curtains on the floor. Okay, and it says half of a panel. Each panel is 4 amos, and half a panel is draped over. Which according to Rabbi Yehuda, that makes sense because there's 12 left for the back, 10 is on the wall, and 2 is on the back. El Rabbi Nechemia. My tisrach, according to Nechemia, only 1 amma. If the Torah says the half the extra panel shall drape, and only 1 amma is actually draped. So turn the page. Tisrach. So Gemara answers tisrach mechaver. No, it doesn't mean that it's going to be draped on the floor. It means draping means like hanging over. It hangs more than the curtain above it. In other words, if you remember all the math, according to Nechemia, the back wall, the curtain ended an amma from the floor. And so this one has 2 amos going past it. 1 amma is going to be still on the wall, covering the adanim, the sockets, and 1 amma on the floor. So still a half of it is going to be draped, not draped completely on the floor, but draped beyond the curtain above it. So it reads according to both. Okay, Tana Rabbi Shmuel, Lama Mishkan Dome. What is the covering of the Mishkan comparable to? Leishim Alechas Bashuk V'Shipulei Mahalchan Acharev, with her tails trailing behind her. In other words, that's the vision that the Torah is trying to give. The Mishkan is almost this depiction of a woman walking. There are actually a lot of imagery that basically makes the Mishkan out to be almost like looking like a woman. You look at Shir HaShirim, and many of the Mefarshim understand that the Mishkan itself is meant to have that type of image, and so the idea is that the walls behind the walls at the end of the Mishkan, which is kind of like you look at like a bride walking the trains. That's the Mishkan itself is basically like the trains of a woman walking. Okay, Tana Rabbanan, charutzim hayakrashim mechalulim hayadanim. The boards were chiseled at the end, and the sockets were hollow. If you look at the picture over there, you see how the walls, the boards place themselves into the sockets. That's the way it looks. Okay, and veneer and krasim balulos kuchachavim barakia, and the hooks and the loops appear as stars in the sky. What does that mean? What that means is that if you looked up, if you were standing in the Mishkan, you looked up, the way that the curtains were actually attached one to another is you had these blue loops, and they were attached with these silver hooks. And so it looked like basically you had this blue, like a sky, and then you had these hooks, which were silver. It looked like you were looking up at the stars from within the Mishkan. Beautiful, beautiful sight. Okay, one more Bryce over here. Tan Rabbanan Yiris Atachtonos Shal Tcheles Shal Gaman Shal Tzelah Shanim Shal Sheish. Okay, the Mishkan curtain, the lower curtain, was made of blue wool, purple wool, scarlet wool, and of linen. Ve'al Yonos, the top one, Shal Masei Izim, was made of goat hair. Ugdola Chachma Shnem Rel Yonos. And the making of the top one, although you would think the top one is less complicated because it's just wool, goat hair, and needed more expertise. More expertise than the more beautiful one on the bottom. Regarding the ones of the lower ones, it says every wise-hearted woman spun it with her hands. All the women whose hearts inspire them with wisdom. It uses more terminology, more wisdom that's used for the top ones. So you see the top ones needed much more chachma, much more wisdom than the bottom ones. Okay, the time the hair was washed on the goats, the tavim and spun while it's still on the goats. In other words, the way that the top one was made was actually the women made it while it was still on the goat's back, which obviously takes a lot more chachma than simply making something when it's already separated. That's not a typical way of making something. I just want to share one idea. Rabbi Alex Israel, a brilliant Talmid Chacham from Gush Etzion, he explains the symbolism of the bottom and the top one. The bottom one is this beautiful, very, you look at it, it's like gorgeous. You sit there, the red and the blue and the thing and the hooks, and it looks like the stars. It's unbelievable. And the top one is nice and boring. But you realize if you're standing, us Yisraelim, we would never actually see the bottom one, right? We never see it ever, or like it's something where even the Kohanim would only see it occasionally. It's something, and you'd only see it occasionally. It's not something which was seen all the time. And he suggests that what's going on over here, the symbolism, is that there's like two ways of connecting to God. There's this brilliant experience where you have to see and you're like swept up and it's emotional and you feel inspired, and that's something which happens occasionally. But that's not the normal thing. We're not normally exposed to that. And what the Torah is trying to remind us is that you have the Maaseh Izim, just the goat hair. It's simple. It actually ends up looking black because of it just has this like basic, covering, but the point is that that's the one that we're normally exposed to, that's the one we're normally connected to. That's our regular connection to Hashem. We have to remind ourselves, yes, inside the Mishkan there's this incredible opportunity, but it's very rare that we actually get to tap into it. We have to learn how to connect to that outer covering, which covers the entire inner covering, because that's what we're normally going to be exposed to. I would just add that based on this last Gemara, what you see is that actually takes more chachma to connect through that. In other words, it's very easy to be inspired. In other words, in those moments of inspiration, it's very easy to connect to Hashem. Yeah, when you feel inspired, okay, I'm going to do awesome things. But it's the covering of izim, it's the goat hair, it's the boring one. That takes, the Gemara says over here, much more chachma. It takes much more wisdom to figure out how am I going to be inspired, how am I going to connect to Hashem even on a day when I don't feel it, when I feel down, when I feel like broken, I'm still have to connect to Hashem. That takes much more chachma, but that is our normal connection. That's the one we have to figure out and navigate, and to figure out how to find that extra chachma to be able to connect to Hashem in those times. Have a wonderful day.